out xdog.com. And of course, as always, I got my boy Trevor over here. And today, we're going to talk about the importance of intent.
Intent's everything. Realistically, if you're doing it for nothing, it's a famous saying, what's the influence thing? Like, if you can't, you're either living for something or dying for nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, intent is super important. I learned that a long time ago, as far as like a lot of people now, right now, they say unemployment is really high, right?
Yeah.
But
always has been though.
Yeah, but what they're not saying is that entrepreneurship is at an all-time high, right? And a lot of people who are coming out with new products or brands or companies or businesses on their own to try to, make a living. I think a lot of them are chasing. They don't have the right intent in a lot of cases. They're doing it for what?
Well, the intent is one of those things where, for one, the entrepreneur went up because people were sitting around at their home, and at the end of the day, when you're looking at it, as Ludacris said, I got mouths to feed.
Yeah.
You got a family, you got a house. None of those things changed. Yeah, they gave you a bypass so you don't have to pay for it, but some people had to figure it out, so they realized they had a hustle in them. So the intent, I don't know that it's bad completely, because if the intent's to pay your house note and make sure your kids can eat, that's clear. Now the intent, we as entrepreneurs is purpose and passion. So there's a difference, because we want to get up every day and be motivated by the opportunity life provides to be better. Whereas they're like, oh, these people are just taking up space. Look, they're doing what they got to do to survive, man.
Yeah.
So
and survive, and maybe their intent is just to make money.
That's it.
And for a short-term goal that could possibly work, but for long-term, eventually it's going to run out of gas. You know what I mean?
Of course, because 9 out of 10 people also have an employee mentality. But when you start seeing drop shipping checks come in and various things that they're doing to get by, or the people that are hustling Airbnb, it's also one of those things where you go, they say this is not that bad a lifestyle, especially when they're making what they made in 2 weeks in a week.
Yeah.
It messes them up. Now, I believe I'm with you saying that, hey, there's a top line to this thing. And I tell people, hey, get a number and get out.
Yeah.
Because you are going to suffer. I literally just told somebody I shot all day the other day. They're one of those fitness coaches, online, like, hey, I'm a guru and expert. And I'm like this. Well,
it kind of goes right there, right? For example, they're so-called experts, correct?
So-called, God bless them.
Yeah.
No disrespect.
No, there's no disrespect.
All disrespect.
But the intent is to probably just to make money, right? Their intent really isn't to truly help the individual.
But that's the sad part. You would assume that there was an intent to make money. And the problem is they were making money. And there's many stories like this, where let's say somebody goes from doing, $2,000 every 2 weeks to literally doing $10K a month.
Yeah.
And they did $10K for 8 months. And they don't even know what to do with the money because they've never been there before.
Sure.
So you say, hey, what's in your bank account? Oh, you don't have $20,000 in your bank account? What have you been doing with your money?
Yeah.
So the responsibility that they have now as an entrepreneur or someone being successful, because there's no intent, that's where they're going to fail.
Yeah, or they have a bad intention, right?
There you go. Belfort said it in an interview many times. He said we were making more money than we could count, but we didn't have shit in the bank.
I've been there. I've been there. Man. Yeah.
So if you had to tell them, what's the number one intent here? And we talked about this many times at Xdog. What makes this such an intentional brand? Why is this thing going to work? Why does it work?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do is that we really go all in on, our intention is to really, truly help dog owners, help their dogs live a longer and healthier lifestyle. You know what I mean? Just the bottom line is that if we can give them the opportunity to potentially add years to their dogs' lives. I mean, you've had dogs in your life, you know what happens when you lose one. It's devastating.
Man, me and Fred were talking about that the other day, actually, because I set him up by a pack. And in buying a pack, what happens is if you lose a dog, the pack is affected.
Yeah.
And he said, I just don't know that I could go through that again, because one of his dogs literally, it died 3 or 4 years ago, and it fucked him up and the dogs up. He's like, I watched my dogs literally struggle losing a pack member. So I get it, and the intent, of course, is still there because his purpose and drive and focus. He's never gonna stop having dogs, but it's like, do I need that many?
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because when you think about it, like remember I just got back from Caesars, and it was like dogs are not emotional. I wonder if wolves and stuff, if they lose a member of the pack, how is the pack leader affected? Us, we're emotional species, so maybe Fred being super emotional, really his energy really affected the rest of the pack, not so much the loss of the dog.
I do think that animals to a degree are responsive to, for one, clearly the energy thing, but I do think they're emotional at times.
Yeah.
They hurt when the person hurts. My dog, my grandfather died. I had a German Shepherd named Ringo. And he sat at the door and didn't eat that much almost every day at 5 o'clock waiting for my grandpa. He wasn't coming back. So it's crazy how, and even, I don't know, people are familiar with Fabian. Fabian was like, he watched Remy cry. He said, is that normal? He says it. You can go watch it on YouTube. He says, when they were putting Remy down due to his kidneys or liver failing, he said it looked like the dog literally shed a tear. And he was like, I asked the vet, is that normal? They're like, well, they're like, no, that's not normal. That dog just shed a tear. So I don't think we'll ever know until we know, but it's all a matter of what we believe in our experiences. Specific to dogs being, emotional beings.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, when it comes to our products, we just recently got this freeze-dried organ and bone recipe, and my intention behind this product was, okay, we know the importance of organ and bone in a dog's diet, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at the everyday dog food, the dry food or dry diets, or even some raw diets, they lack a balance of organ and bones.
Absolutely.
And there was a big gap. I couldn't find anything like this in the industry. And so I was like, okay, there's a gap. So we need to fill that gap and fill that void. And I really believe that we've done that with this product. And of course, when we always talk about gut health and the importance of gut health, and we also included, outside of green buffalo tribe being something that's naturally abundant in pre and probiotics and digestive enzymes, we added more probiotics, apple cider vinegar and digestive enzymes to it as well.
That's so funny that you put the vinegar in there, because that's one of those things that helps basically boost their immune system as well.
Yeah.
And people, just so you're aware, when he says that, they're doing the organ thing, dogs don't eat protein, carbs, and fats. They eat protein, fat, and bone. That's their diet. We put this carb bullshit in them, and it just basically inflames them. Imagine lacking the enzyme to process milk at a certain stage in life. It's like giving your dog milk and you're just killing it slowly but surely, and it's hurting. So this concoction here of organ and bone, it helps you solve the problem, because we know for fact, unfortunately, that dog food, especially if you're not talking about the top dog foods, they don't have this shit in them.
Yeah, and on top of that, you got to think about it. Dog food, it's cooked, right? Multiple times. This is freeze dried, so it's in a raw form that we just take the moisture out of it.
Yep.
And so obviously it doesn't have the biological value rating of a actual raw piece of food, right? But you can reconstitute it with moisture with water.
Yeah, and tell them just to think about it like adding yogurt or something to help you process whatever you might be struggling. For instance, for those that eat vegetables provide digestive enzymes to break down proteins in the body. So adding this to whatever shitty dog food you might be feeding your dog will literally help alleviate some of its internal stress that you cannot measure yet. And the only way to do that is just to do a microbial test. You don't want to pay that price.
What's really crazy? I started thinking about today. I wanted to talk to you about this, but it's kind of like you have these breeders and stuff out here, these people who have these programs, and they got these phenomenal genetics, right?
Yeah.
And you would think that their intention, right, is if you got you've been gifted these phenomenal genetics, that you would want to fuel the dog's body with amazing nutrients, right? But it's kind of crazy. It's kind of like we're still in this phase where they're still looking for, like, if I had $1 for every time I got on social media and somebody's like, hey, did you try this cheap ass dog food? I need to get it by the pallets. And you look at it and it's full of fucking just fillers and corns and, preservatives and just stuff like that. And I'm like, man, and you asked the question, if you had a Rolls Royce, would you put 83 octane in it? Fuck no.
You couldn't. It would stop working.
Yeah.
You would literally ruin the engine. But that just goes back to the intent. This whole thing's about intent, right? And unfortunately, I said this the other night. Someone did say, hey, well, that's why nutrition and health is so important. I said, in this case, it's backyard bad breeding. The intent, unfortunately, around the dog that I breed, which is primarily the American Bully, is to showcase some designer dog with a lot of muscle. But the problem is now we have soft palates and different stenoses that have occurred, which create heart problems, terrible breathing, and overheating on a whole nother level, where people are bringing full-blown kits to shows just to maybe keep a dog alive, just in case.
The dogs are not even walking; they're bringing them in on wheel, like in a little pulley barrel.
Yeah, it's a bad thing. So the intent, it's for one, it's gotten out of hand, and it's no point in having an impressive-looking dog. Because objectively, the dog's supposed to have, he said, great genetics, which means great muscle. And
who's at fault there, though? The person creating the product or the people who are investing into the product?
Well, I think it starts with the breeding, then not caring, because now the expectation is that the dog's going to die anyway. Because unfortunately, dogs are still looked at as a commodity.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you don't know what that is, it's just something that can be exchanged and thrown in the trash, and it loses its value. But realistically, a great dog, the value goes up. But clearly, the people are at fault. Unfortunately, the information is not completely out there. The beauty about this podcast and what we're trying to achieve in general is just making sure you have the option.
Yeah.
The option to know so that you can do better. This is one of those supplements that will add value to your dog's quality of life. And then, I tell you this, some of my guys are saying they're being forced into a mentorship program because their intent has always been to create amazing dogs. But it's like, Trev, the more I see, I'm borderline about to open up a fucking rescue for some of these dogs. Or like I told a guy, literally, right? Get you, before you go spend 20,000 on a dog, buy a mentor. That would save you more time and energy. So it's like a whole thing that transcends one bad decision, one bad investment, and it's because they lack intent. If the intent is driven by, as we know, money, there's really no opportunity.
Yeah, it's really interesting topic, because when you think about it, man, like with entrepreneurship and just starting a business in general, man, like I said, for the first probably like 13, 14 years, it was all about chasing money. Then once I was able to invest in some mentors, and they were able to give me a mental pivot, right?
Yeah.
And my mentality goes, okay, well, what's your purpose? And I finally figure out, okay, I identify my purpose. The byproduct is that the money comes. The money is just a tool. And
people will buy that. And when you think about, that's why I asked about the intent of X though.
Yeah.
We know what, for those who love, I'm a business junkie, so I always bring these things up, but Jobs' intent was to give you a device that worked. He don't give a shit how you feel or what you think. He don't believe the customer's right. He believes in doing what's best. Apple does no charity work. They don't believe in it. It's straight business. But it's a business that works, and it's a $600+ billion business. Basically, the biggest business in the world, to be clear. That being said, the intent is to make something that is aesthetically pleasing and works, period. So you never hear about an Apple device that get no viruses. Isn't that crazy? You can get a Hewlett Packard, you can get you an Alien, you can get you, a desktop, whatever. And 2 months in, you got to put all that McAfee and all that other stuff on there and that bullshit. And you'll never hear no Apple joker get no damn virus. Why is that? Because you got to be Apple approved and certified to even get on the network. Like you got to go through apps, anything. It's got to be Mac approved. And if it ain't MAC on it before, it ain't getting on there. Because the intent's clear. We want this shit to last.
Yeah.
And we want your dog to last here at X Dogs. So that's why we're coming up with more and more products to better your quality of life along with your dogs. Because trust me, as he talked about losing a dog, you don't want to lose your dog to no dumb shit.
Yeah. And especially, man, when you think about it, man, you want your dog to live a fulfilled life, Like, it's just kind of crazy, when you really, really analyze and start understanding and taking a deeper dive into dog health and fitness.
So tell them what's the number one thing your dog does for you? What's the intent of you having a dog?
Mine, on a personal
level.
Like I said, man, I don't trust people, So I think having dogs around is, for me, it's just an emotional support,
Yeah.
Being able to sit down at home and just being around them. I know, a lot of my friends are like, what the fuck you doing? Like, dog trainers, they don't have no emotional support dogs like that, you know what I mean? But for me, on a personal level, that's it. Just because, man, I'm constantly grinding and fighting and crawling and scraping and just trying to get to that next level, and just being able to go home and just be around something that I know its intention, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Means something to me.
What's crazy, the other thing that took place the other day is I was shooting this client and they had got, I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this, but
probably not.
Yeah, well, good.
Spoiler, 3, 2, 1.
She's going through therapy, right? And everybody's kind of like walking down that therapy room kind of right now. And she said she's learning how to manage the toxicity. And I said, for fucking what? I said, who manages toxicity? Why would you just cut the shit out? She literally looked up in the sky and wrote it down. She said, that's a good point. I'm like, the intent though, pure-hearted, great individual, but is willing to still compromise her mental health and well-being, which I'm taking this back to having his dogs, right? Being an entrepreneur, the intent is to be better every day. So Stan gets up, goes through his routine, gets through dealing with the bullshit people and their nonsense, drop shit, doing whatever X-Dog has to do to be great that day. And then wants to go home and have a moment of peace.
Yeah.
It would suck. The Bible actually said it's better to sit on the corner of a burning house than to come home to a nagging woman. But it would suck to come home and be dealing with more shit. More shit. Yeah. So when you come home and
it says nagging woman.
It says that in the nagging. It's in there. It's in the good book. And so when you come home, the last thing you want to do is add more stress to your life. And if you do have a dog, you know how much relief you get. I mean, you can literally have the worst day in the world and come home and that dog wagging his tail and just being there for you. It literally makes you feel better. Nothing you can do about it. It literally fucking makes you feel better 99.9% of the time unless they fucking wrecked your house. And even then you're like, fuck. But you're not like, I gotta kill him.
Yeah, but again, you set rules, boundaries, and limitations and get a fucking kennel and invest in that and have the intent to help your dog win in the day, instead of fucking up the day. Because technically the dog's chewing up your house and destroying your house, it's your fault, right?
Exactly. So walk them through the first time you realized that you had lacked intent and needed to be intentional.
The first time I ever lacked intent?
Well, Jesus Christ. There's not necessarily where you're like, hey, this is unintentional. It's like
where I kind of became aware of it.
Awareness is key. Something you guys don't know that you were fucking up, and then one day it just punched you in the mouth, and you go, I gotta fucking do better.
Yeah, I just think, again, investing into a mentor. Like, I really think that's very important because it was the game changer in my life because it took a lot of the guesswork out. And I happened to be surrounded by just an amazing group of like-minded individuals who were all chasing the same thing. So I don't know exactly when it was, right? When I figured it out that I need to start chasing purpose. I don't know the exact date, but I remember there was a moment where I was listening to one of my mentors, and that's the explanation was like, okay, so Andy Frisella, he's one of my mentors in RT, right? His thing is like, okay, for example, him and Chris, right? They're like, we're not making a lot of money doing supplements, but nothing feels better when you have that individual who comes into your store, right? And a year later, they're like overweight, and a year later they come back, you hardly fucking notice them, and they're like, holy shit, you changed my life. They're like, fuck this, man. We may not make a lot of money doing this, but we're helping people. And there was a moment that it kind of resonated to me the same way. Like, I really want to eliminate canine obesity. Like, that's my mission. Like, I want to eliminate it through nutrition and fitness. I'm not a professional trainer, but I was like, fuck it, I'm not a professional trainer, so I'm just going to build an army and a network of professional trainers and give our community access to them, right?
But even so, I mean, the X-Dog vest kind of solves that problem if you just put it on and walk your dog. You know how many people don't, you guys know who you are, who don't even walk the dog?
Well, I just didn't realize, man, like, it really hit home when I came back. I was like, damn, I just created probably the world's greatest tool for dogs. And it's like literally the most versatile, right? Like there's other great tools, the leash and collar, the e-collar, the prong collar. There's great tools, slap mills, like there's all great tools, but as far as versatility and easy to use, and then getting confirmation from some world-class trainers, like, damn, dude, you really should be proud of yourself. You created this amazing product and tool. It never sat home to me like that, and now I'm like, oh shit. Now I got to go all in on it. So now, like, I'm looking at every inch of it. Remember we were talking about engineers? I'm looking for different engineers to look at the vest and go, how can we even improve it now? Yeah. And I'm like, damn, I never even thought about ever getting engineers. Like, I'm at the point right now, I'm like, engineering the vest, even making it way more dynamic.
I know a rocket scientist, I put him on this shit because them jokers know how to look at the aerodynamics of everything, break it down and say, hey, this is where a dog carries most of his weight. This is how to redistribute the weight. I love engineers. Back home, when he's back home, Kansas City, where I'm from, I know one of the top engineers.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's something where, it's like one of those things where you either go to school to be an engineer or a doctor, you know what I mean? Like,
it says something. And the thing about engineers, they can literally go and do anything.
Yeah.
Because of how they think. Operationally, they're that smart. They just see problems and solve them. So back to the intent. What's the next intentional thing people should be on the lookout for, specific to X-Dog?
Well, specifically to X-Dog, you can just look at our product line. Like, we're working on a V4, and our intention is to improve the product even more. That's the whole thing. Like, I could sit back and probably stop at the V3, but now it's like, okay, how can we make it better? So our intention is to make it easier to use even more, right, and make it more effective. We have added new resistance band areas in the shoulder, removing the Velcro pockets and going with invisible zippers, just because a lot of people say, man, I got sausage fingers, I'm having a hard time getting the weights in there, and just more education. That's why we brought you in.
Yeah.
On the educational side, like, we want to educate. We've got trainers now that are willing to do, product videos, and so that's going to be important, and just continue to learn.
And listen, people, Stan keeps talking about these trainers, but one of my sales pitches to him originally, whenever we first met, was I heard him talk, and I'm very good at discernment. And one of the things I picked up on was this guy knew a lot of stuff. Now the challenge is every community has a voice, and right now the dog community lacks a voice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And trust me, I went and looked for it, and that's the reason why I got back into breeding, because I couldn't find it. And then I found some people, and they're quiet.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna get them to talk. And so where the trainers add value in justifying his product, the facts are this: Caesar didn't call him and said, hey, I'm gonna put a vest on. He just put it on because he understood that this thing added value.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm pitching to him, even while we're working on this stuff, is he's got to continue to establish the value of the vest by bettering, and that in itself betters all the trainers.
Yeah.
And they're coming up with creative ways to better dogs through the vest that are helping him. And that's the beauty about being intentional in business. His intent is not to know everything; it's to better and better and better things as they continue to manifest or grow in whatever way.
I think manifest is like the perfect word. It's like, when your intentions are in the right place, things will manifest for you. When your intentions are in the wrong place, your shit ain't gonna work out, just the bottom line.
And there's nothing you can do to stop it as long as you are open to receiving constructive criticism. We love the hate, we respect it, we know it's needed, but we appreciate those who seek to understand better ways to better the vest, the dog, and do whatever.
Sure.
So whenever we're creating content that we hope helps, that we know will help, continue to put positive feedback.
Yeah.
Because the more things the more ways we can help you, the better we can, make products in general, while also educating. Just anything you guys want to know, continue to reach out. Our intent here at X Dog is to, better dog.
Yeah, just bring massive value to you. That's pretty much it. But man, I hope you guys got some golden nuggets out of this podcast and this episode. Be sure, man, to leave us a comment, follow, subscribe, do whatever you can, especially if you found any value in it. And even in the comments, or leave us a review. Give us some topics that you would like us to discuss. Man, we're an open book when it comes to that. And thank you again for investing into your dog's health and fitness. Our mission is to eliminate canine obesity one dog at a time. So, man, we can't do it without an amazing team and a pack like yourself. So, as always, thank you, and Team X Dog Strong.